America strikes back. On April 18, 1942, 16 B-25 bombers shocked Japan with the first raid on Tokyo. It was payback for Pearl Harbor. 2 atomic bombs, 2 cities. Hiroshima and Nagasaki fell in seconds, forcing Japan's surrender. The Doolittle Raid, April 18, 1942, marked the first American air operation to strike the Japanese archipelago during World War II. Led by Lieutenant Colonel James H. Doolittle, the mission represented a daring retaliatory strike for the Pearl Harbor attack and provided a crucial morale boost to the American public during a period of military setbacks. 16 B-25B Mitchell medium bombers were launched from the USS Hornet aircraft carrier, located approximately 800 miles off the Japanese coast. Each bomber carried a crew of 5 with no fighter escort. The bombers approached Tokyo flying at treetop level to avoid detection, with crews trained to take off in only 450 feet instead of the usual 1,200. The aircraft were loaded with incendiary bombs and high-explosive ordnance, delivering approximately 14 tons of bombs during the raid. The 16 bombers targeted multiple Japanese cities. Tokyo, with objectives including oil tank farms, steel mills, and power plants. Yokohama, Yokosuka, Nagoya, and Kobe. In Tokyo, the targets included an oil tank farm, a steel mill, several power plants, a nearly completed light carrier, Ryuho, 6 schools, and an army hospital. Japanese officials reported that the 2 aircraft whose crews were captured had struck their targets. Damage assessments showed that approximately 50 Japanese civilians were killed and around 400 were injured. Material damage to military and industrial targets was minimal and easily repaired by Japanese forces, but American air crews claimed hits on virtually all assigned primary targets. Several planes reported seeing large fires from incendiary bombs, while high-explosive ordnance did visible damage to factories, ammunition dumps, naval facilities, and military barracks. Following the raid, all 16 bombers flew westward toward China. Due to the added distance from their original launch point, of the 75 airmen involved, most aircraft crash-landed in China. 1 plane landed in the Soviet Union. 3 died in accidents in China. 8 airmen were captured by the Japanese, and the remainder returned to the United States. The raid had profound psychological effects on both sides. In the United States, it demonstrated American resolve and provided critical morale-boosting propaganda. In Japan, the attack shattered the illusion that the Japanese homeland was immune to American airstrikes. The Doolittle raid prompted significant strategic shifts. Japan hastened to expand its defensive perimeter beyond originally planned boundaries, and Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto advanced his plans to attack Midway Island in the Central Pacific, an attack that resulted in the decisive American naval victory at the Battle of Midway. The raid also prompted retaliatory campaigns against Chinese civilians, who assisted downed American airmen, including the Zhejiang-Jiangxi campaign. Initial B-29 operations from China, June to December 1944. The arrival of the long-range B-29 Super Fortress bomber in 1944 gave the United States the capability to strike targets at previously unprecedented ranges. The B-29 could fly over 3,250 nautical miles and reach altitudes above 30,000 feet. Almost 90% of bombs dropped on Japan were eventually delivered by B-29s. First B-29 raid, June 15, 1944. The first significant bombing raid occurred on June 15, 1944, targeting the coke ovens in Yawata, a vital part of Japan's steel production. This operation, codenamed Operation Matterhorn, was launched from airfields in China. Although the initial raid was not particularly successful, it demonstrated the feasibility of using B-29s against Japanese targets on the home islands. Limitations of China-based operations are: bombing raids from Chinese bases proved logistically difficult and limited in effectiveness. Supply lines were overextended, fuel was scarce, and the round-trip distance to major Japanese targets was extreme. Chinese-based B-29 operations remained small-scale until American forces established bases closer to Japan in the Pacific Theater. Strategic bombing campaign from the Mariana Islands, November 1944 to August 1945. Following American capture of Saipan and Tinian in June 1944, the U.S. established B-29 airfields in the Mariana Islands, providing much closer proximity to Japanese targets. B-29 raids from the Marianas began on November 17, 1944, and lasted until August 15, 1945, the day of Japanese surrender. Precision bombing phase, November 1944 to February 1945. Initial operations focused on precision bombing of industrial targets from high altitude during daylight hours. However, this approach proved largely ineffective due to mechanical failures with B-29 engines, strong jet stream winds that carried bombs off target, formidable Japanese air defenses, and poor bombing accuracy. General Curtis LeMay's strategy, January 1945. In January 1945, Major General Curtis LeMay was tasked with revitalizing the B-29 bombing campaign. LeMay's boss, General Hap Arnold, urged him to adopt incendiary bombing tactics against Japan's cities and abandon precision bombing. LeMay's tactical decided to attack Tokyo by night at low altitude, stripping his bombers of guns and armor to accommodate a larger bomb load. The strategy employed by LeMay, pioneered by RAF Bomber Command, involved using Pathfinder aircraft to mark targets with napalm bombs before the main force arrived. Firebombing campaign against major Japanese cities. March to June 1945. Tokyo, firebombing. March 9th to 10th, 1945. The firebombing of Tokyo on the night of March 9 to 10, 1945, became one of history's most destructive single air attacks. Force composition and ordnance. 334 B-29 Super Fortress bombers were dispatched against Tokyo, with 279 bombers successfully dropping ordnance. A total of 1,665 tons of incendiary ordnance was dropped, consisting mostly of cluster bombs releasing napalm and white phosphorus bomblets, along with approximately 500,000 cylinders of napalm. Bombs were dropped from low altitude of 2,000 to 2,500 feet. The primary target was Shitamachi neighborhood of Tokyo, with densely populated working-class districts near the docks. Pathfinder aircraft dropped napalm to mark the target area in an X pattern, with follow-on aircraft aiming near the initial fires. Dry, windy conditions on the night of the raid aided rapid spread of fire, which overwhelmed Japanese firefighting capabilities. Tokyo had only 716 motorized pumper trucks, 11 fireboats, and 400 hand-drawn fire engines. Within 10 minutes, more than 1,000 fires demanded attention. The casualties. Approximately 15.8 square miles of central Tokyo were destroyed. An estimated 100,000 people were killed, making it probably the most destructive single air attack in human history, including the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Most like 90,000 and possibly over 100,000 Japanese people were killed, mostly civilians, and 1 million were left homeless. American losses were minimal. Only 14 aircraft were lost, with 96 airmen lost. First firebombing campaign results, March 9th to 24th, is the 16-day intensive firebombing campaign. 1,595 B-29 sorties were dispatched, dropping 9,365 tons of incendiary ordnance from an average altitude of 7,000 feet. A total of 32 square miles of highly populated and industrialized area was destroyed. Japanese opposition steadily declined after initial raids, and the first firebombing campaign exhausted 21st Bomber Command's supplies of incendiary bombs by late March 1945. Second firebombing campaign against major cities, May 1945. Nagoya raids, May 13th and 16th, 1945. On May 13th, 472 B-29s attacked by day, destroying 3.15 square miles. On May 16th, 457 B-29s attacked at night, destroying 3.82 square miles. Combined raids killed 3,866 Japanese and rendered 472,701 homeless. Tokyo raids, May 23rd to 25th, 1945. On May 23rd, 520 B-29s destroyed 5.3 square miles of southern Tokyo, with 17 aircraft lost and 69 damaged. On May 25th, 502 B-29s destroyed 16.8 square miles of central Tokyo, including headquarters of several key government ministries and portions of the Tokyo Imperial Palace, though crews were specifically briefed not to target the palace. This raid resulted in 26 superfortresses shot down and 100 damaged. Third firebombing campaign against smaller cities, June-August 1945. Beginning June 17, 1945, 21st Bomber Command launched incendiary raids against smaller Japanese cities. On that night, Hamamatsu, Kagoshima, Omuta, and Yokoichi were each attacked by a wing of B-29s. 6.073 square miles of buildings were destroyed with no B-29s lost to Japanese actions. This operation set the pattern for subsequent firebombing attacks. Campaign pattern: our 16 multi-city incendiary attacks were conducted by war's end, averaging 2 per week, targeting 58 cities in total. As the campaign continued, and the most important cities were destroyed, bombers were sent against smaller and less significant cities, with 4 cities typically attacked each night, each by a separate wing of bombers. Most smaller cities were almost undefended by anti-aircraft guns, and Japan's night fighter force proved ineffective. Later raids are: the last mass incendiary raids conducted by B-29s were raids on Osaka on June 7th and 15th, destroying another 4 square miles. Raids continued through August 1945. Over 6,690 B-29 sorties were flown, dumping 41,592 tons of incendiary ordnance on Japan. A total of 105.6 square miles of Japan's 6 most important cities was destroyed. The firebombing campaign devastated 64 Japanese cities in total. 136 B-29 superfortresses were lost during the firebombing campaign. Only a single B-29 was shot down by enemy action during the later raids against smaller cities. A further 66 were damaged, and 18 crashed due to accidents. Other major city firebombing raids. March 1945. Nagoya raid, March 11th, 1945. 310 B-29s were dispatched, and 2.05 square miles of buildings were burned out, with no B-29s lost to Japanese defenses. Osaka raid, March 13 to 14, 1945. 274 superfortresses attacked Osaka, destroying 8.1 square miles of the city for the loss of 2 aircraft. Kobe Raid, March. 16 to 17, 1945. 331 B-29s attacked, destroying 7 square miles, equivalent to half the city's area, killing 8,000 people, rendering 650,000 homeless, and resulting in 3 B-29s lost. Nagoya Raid, March 18th to 19th, 1945. B-29s destroyed 2.95 square miles of buildings, with only 1 superfortress shot down. Atomic bombings, August 1945. The Potsdam Declaration, July 26, 1945. On July 26, 1945, U.S. President Harry S. Truman, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and Chinese President Chiang Kai-shek issued the Potsdam Declaration, demanding Japan's unconditional surrender. The ultimatum warned that refusal would result in prompt and utter destruction. Hiroshima atomic bombing, August 6, 1945. On August 6, 1945, the U.S. Army Air Forces dropped Little Boy, an enriched uranium gun-type atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. The uranium bomb had an explosive yield equal to 15,000 tons of TNT and was detonated at approximately 1,968 feet above the city. Effects and destruction are: the single bomb devastated an area of several square miles and razed and burnt around 70% of all buildings. Intense heat killed people miles away from the epicenter, and nuclear radiation killed exposed individuals and caused acute radiation sickness. Casualties are: an estimated 70,000 to 80,000 people were killed immediately, with total deaths reaching approximately 140,000 to 150,000 by year's end from injuries and radiation sickness. Despite Hiroshima's sizable military garrison estimated at 24,000 troops, approximately 90% of the dead were civilians. An estimated 38,000 of those killed were children. Nagasaki atomic bombing, August 9th, 1945. 3 days later, on August 9th, 1945, the U.S. dropped Fat Man, a plutonium implosion-type bomb, on Nagasaki. The bomb had a slightly larger explosive yield of approximately 21,000 tons of TNT and was detonated at about 1,640 feet above the city. Effects and casualties are: the terrain of Nagasaki, located in a valley, limited blast effects compared to Hiroshima. Ground temperatures reached 4,000 degrees Celsius near ground zero, and radioactive rain poured down after detonation. 6.7 square kilometers of the city were leveled. An estimated 70,000 to 80,000 people were killed immediately, with 74,000 to 80,000 total deaths by year's end. Combined atomic bombing impact. The aerial bombings killed 150,000 to 246,000 people, the vast majority civilians, and remain the only uses of nuclear weapons in an armed conflict. Combined with the conventional bombing campaign, the atomic bombings accelerated Japanese surrender. Japanese surrender, August 1945. On August 15, 1945, the Japanese government announced acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration's surrender terms. The formal Japanese instrument of surrender was signed on September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, officially ending the Pacific War.